My name is Doug Scudder. I am the marketing strategist here at Randall Riley, and with me today we have Nick Reed. He is our Vice President of Digital Services. So his department handles the actual execution of Facebook and YouTube campaigns for our clients. So of course he's a perfect fit to lend his expertise to this subject for us today. Our other panelist or co-presenter is Julie Arsenal, my boss. She's our Vice President of Marketing, and she understands channel marketing just about as well as anybody. So she's going to be looking at some of the more practical sides of what we're talking about today. Now, I did want to say very briefly, there are probably a handful of you here who are driver recruiters. In fact, if you're a driver recruiter, could you go ahead and raise your hand real quick? Just click that button. I'm just curious. Okay, there's a handful of you. That's totally fine. So as we're going through the presentation today, we did a recruiting webinar yesterday, but it's all about the exact same channels. So there's no reason for you to leave. You're going to get a ton of really great information today, except every time we say customers, replace that with drivers. The reason that these two webinars are so similar is because we use all the same tools to recruit drivers as we do to market to fleet executives and owner-operators and the rest of the trucking industry. So this is going to be really helpful for everybody, no matter whether you're looking to market or recruit drivers. This is going to be great for you guys. Now, if you have any questions, you can use the question feature here in GoToWebinar. You can also tweet us at Randall Riley. Use the hashtag RRWebinar, and you can ask your questions that way as well. So that was a somewhat lengthy introduction. Let's go ahead and jump in. Julie, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
All right. Thank you, Doug. So first, let's talk about social media in general. A lot of people have fear about social media. How involved can they get? How much advertising? Should they make it a big push? The fundamental truth you need to understand is people are talking about your business on social media. You only have to decide whether or not you're going to get involved. And from everything that I've seen, getting involved in the conversation makes it go a lot better. It's harder to trash somebody to their face than behind their back. And it also allows you to tell your side of the story so that it's not just one-sided if people are looking for social word of mouth. So first, let's jump right into Facebook. I'm going to talk about Facebook. Nick's going to ask me some questions about that, and then I'm going to jump Nick is going to jump into YouTube.
Sure. Thanks, Julie. So I'd like you to talk just a little bit. I think, as you mentioned, there's so much fear a lot of times with Facebook, and I know a lot of our marketers have to sort of defend internally why they're devoting so much resources towards social channels. So let's talk a little bit about scope and applicability in our market. Okay.
So when people talk about social media, it's very easy to view that as a one-off, a side channel. But Facebook is actually the largest hub of human interaction the world has ever seen. It's enormous. So with 1.23 billion monthly active users, 945 mobile users, and 757 million people checking Facebook every day. And I have to confess, I am one of those that checks it every day. But it's not just social media, it's big media now. It's very big. And in fact, when you're trying to talk about Facebook as part of your social strategy, as part of your overall marketing strategy, it also should be part of your mobile strategy. With 76.83% of Facebook's total monthly user base accessing Facebook from a mobile device, you really can't talk about mobile without talking about social, and you can't really talk about media reach or digital advertising without talking about Facebook.
That's right. So having shown the big picture, let's talk a little bit now about applicability directly in our markets. A lot of times people say, hey, I get the big picture, but are my customers using Facebook? So let's show them a little research.
Okay. So in the research that Randall Riley has done, we surveyed fleet executives, and 48.1% of them use Facebook, and that's a decent jump from last year. And you can download all of these connectivity reports on randallriley.com. We provide that research free of charge. So fleet executives, even with that being a little bit of an older audience, they are more connected with smartphones. They tend to be sitting at desks, their computers. They are on Facebook. And then if you look at another segment, owner-operators, we have 46.6% using Facebook, around the same, a little bit lower, around the same age groups there for owner-operators and fleet executives, but this group tends to be a little less connected to technology. So I think definitely the trucking audience is on Facebook.
That's right. So now let's talk about, as a channel, why Facebook is effective.
Okay. So we talked about Facebook is enormous. Your audience is on there. Why does it work? I think there are three main points here, and they kind of lead into each other. First, it's a highly engaged audience. This is somewhere that people go to click around, to share, to comment, to like. It's different than reading an article somewhere else. It's a very, very engaged audience. And that engagement is because it becomes a primary point of content consumption. Now, if you look at someone like myself, I'm very connected socially. Natural output of being in marketing, I'm sure is the same for many of you. But I get a lot of my news there. I get a lot of my social updates through that mechanism of Facebook, the Facebook news feed. So with that being the primary point of content consumption for a lot of people, with an engaged audience, it's next to the pictures of their grandkids, that leads to really high conversion rates. And I know, Nick, we're going to talk about some examples later, but you mentioned that for our clients, it's some of the best ROI for any types of digital advertising.
Yeah, I think people have been surprised when it comes to advertising on Facebook at how effective it is as a lead gen tool. And as we'll talk later, I think in a lot of cases it's become a go-to play for both content marketing and for lead gen inside the trucking industry.
Right. It's easy to think of it as just organic, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the organic side of Facebook, but it's media, it's big media, and you can buy a spot to hit your audience with it. You don't have to think of it as just the fluffy organic side of communication.
That's right. So having said that, let's talk about some best practices, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about how that interaction of organic and paid, what that looks like.
Okay. All right. So before you get into the paid version of Facebook, I think it's really important to have a presence and to build your organic side. Nick brought up yesterday a fantastic point about what happens if somebody clicks through on your ad and gets to an empty business page. So with that, on the business page, I think that this is becoming more standard, but if you use a personal account and ask people to be your friends and you message them and you think you're tricking Facebook by getting all of this audience access and they're not hiding it, you're going to lose out eventually. One, if you actually are successful with it and grow to a certain size, Facebook will notice and shut you down, and then all of your hard work is lost. Second, you won't be able to get any analytics. If you have a business page, you can get demographic breakdowns of people that like your page, how people are engaging with your posts. It's a fantastic tool for helping you increase the viability of your Facebook presence. And then third, you won't be able to use any of the advertising options available, which if you're going to take your social media presence to the next level, Facebook is now pay to play. Right, the second point I would consider is to carefully consider access and managers. There have been multiple horror stories of, I don't know who has access to Twitter, I thought we let that employee go. Whose email address is this? Who is that? Who is putting those messages out there? This is a big audience, like we said before. Facebook is big media. So treat it as such. Make sure you have someone you trust controlling the messaging there. Make sure that you have multiple layers of access so that if someone is out or sick or let go, that you can still access that media. Third thing, post multiple times a day. And Nick, you were saying that you had seen something kind of unique with people that were posting multiple times a day.
Yeah, I think what we've seen with our brands on CCJ and Overdrive is that as we began to post more throughout the day, it wasn't just that we got more traffic from social, but we actually got different people at different times of day, and consistently over time we found that we had certain segments of our audience that were consistently clicking through, at different times of day. Some people are check it first, most people are check it first thing in the morning people, and then, some people are check it at lunchtime people, and then in the afternoon. So we found that by posting multiple times a day, we actually got both more click-throughs from Facebook, and we reached different segments at those times.
Excellent point. To finish up our best practices, we've got use images and videos. They consistently perform better. They get more engagement. If you think about the Facebook environment, that newsfeed, if you're scrolling through on your phone or on your desktop, the images are what stand out. So good images and videos. And then respond to comments. That's one of my favorite things about social media. It is high-tech digital advertising. It's the same as any sort of big media. It's a paid media play, except you get to talk back and forth with people. And that's an important component of that. And I'll tell one story where I was talking to a client about their social media, and someone posted something very negative to the effect of they hated America and veterans because their flag was hung slightly incorrectly. They could have left it there, but after talking through it with them, they decided to say, I'm so sorry if we've offended you. We love the United States. We hire many veterans. This is the reference we're using for how we hang our flag, and please let us know if it's incorrect because we care about this. And it was really nice to see other employees of the company jump in and respond to them and defend the company and talk about their great experiences. But if the page had not responded, if that client had not responded, it wouldn't have opened up that conversation. So a negative comment became a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate the core values of that brand. So that kind of sums it up there, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. So now let's pivot more towards the paid advertising side, and just comment again that I think it's important that people see that you're active and that you're authentic on the social channel along with your advertising presence there, so that it's not, hey, I just run ads and, like you said, have an empty business page. So I think those two go together, and they're important. So as we shift, we'll look now at the advertising side of it, and for anybody who's not as familiar, we'll just sort of give you a quick visual to talk about what the different types of ads that are available look like.
All right, so we've got two different types of Facebook ads. One is the classic newsfeed ad. It shows up right with all of your friends' posts. Then you've got the sidebar ads, and they have a little bit of a different feel. The newsfeed ad is more content-based. You have a lot more advertising options. I will point out when we have run, and this is for our company, when we have run just straight like-based campaigns, they don't perform as well as if we do sponsored content. And the strange thing is, with the newsfeed ad, you can run just sponsored content, you can run just a like campaign, or you can run sponsored content that is, Doug, what is the term for, it's like enhanced?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So it's like a like enhanced promoted post. We get more likes from those than just running straight like campaigns. And the difference there is if you look at the ad, it says like page, but it's still driving to a post, and you'll see those around. So the newsfeed is great for brand awareness, for telling your story. One of the cool things about the sidebar, the banner ads, which I think, Nick, you're calling the right-hand rail. So on that right-hand rail, that's a great point for driving straight conversions. And Nick, you mentioned before that that is an easier way to kind of get started. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, especially people who are more comfortable with things like paid search or other, pay-per-click style advertising, where it's pretty similar to what runs on the right rail. You don't necessarily have to link it to your, unlike the newsfeed, to your brand Facebook page. I mean, it's image, a text ad, and it clicks through. A lot of people drive those to landing pages, not necessarily to an app or to anything within Facebook. So it's a sort of a good way to get started, see some effectiveness, but I would say that the majority of our campaigns and a lot of the most effective have made use of both together. And I call it the right-hand rail. I don't know if that's an official term or if somebody here just made it up and I keep saying it. But that's what we call it.
But it's like on YouTube, they keep changing the name of those ads from, I think it was pre-roll, and now it's in-stream, in-view. Yeah, I think it's in-stream now. All right, so those are your ad formats. Next up, we've got how do you make those ads targeted? It's just like any media, you don't want to waste your money getting your ads in front of people who won't care and who will never convert. So the first way to target your ads on Facebook is through demographics. This is information that people put into their profile. It's pretty basic. You can use gender, you can use age, pretty standard, but it can help you get to the right audience. And another way to do this is to look at the demographics for people that like your page so that you can target people that are similar to those demographics. So then the next way to target is topics of interest. These are things, pages that other people like. For instance, Nick, I think you said yesterday that you like Dr. Pepper. Nick is known in the office for always having Dr. Pepper.
That's right.
So if I may see an ad that says Nick Reed likes this, and it's a post by Dr. Pepper, so they can use that to target me. He's never going to convert me. I'm Diet Coke all the way. But you can run a sponsored ad to try. Then behavior. Behavior is really interesting with what you can do there. It's what you're clicking on, how you're interacting with other posts. And this kind of, Nick, can you explain a little bit more about, they have a behavioral score?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the actual mechanics behind how it's calculated, but you can use different elements of the user's behavior that go into that score, and it's just another parameter for targeting by. We honestly don't use that one as much as several of the others.
Right.
Some of the different things that you can target on are things like pages, obviously pages that they've liked, but also how often they're logging in, different apps that they use on Facebook and things like that. Behavior's kind of a catch-all for like their other targeting, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we can also target by connection. So this is where, like I said before, Nick likes Dr. Pepper, so I can target him based on the fact that he likes Dr. Pepper. And then because we're connected on Facebook, Dr. Pepper can then target me, friends of friends. If I want to show Doug an ad, or Samsung wants to show Doug an ad, it would be really easy because Doug and I are friends on Facebook and I have liked the Samsung page. And then we get to the really cool targeting options. So demographics, topics of interest, general behaviors, and connections. Those are fairly standard for any digital advertising, and this is where it gets cool. So we've got email addresses and phone numbers. And I would say, Nick, you mentioned before that this completely complies with all privacy laws. It doesn't match it back to an individual, right?
That's right. You actually, you upload your target list, and it just tells you of this big group that you uploaded, here's the percentage match that you got out of that. So it's not necessarily telling you here's the people who matched or anything like that. It's compliant with all the behavioral advertising guidelines and things like that in terms of privacy, but it does make it very powerful from a targeting standpoint. This particular element is definitely the one we use the most, and it's the one, to me, that helps us become a lot of marketers in trucking. So the go-to reflexive grab for lead gen is targeted email, because I can grab a set of email addresses based on demographics, firmographics, job title, job function, things like that. Well, now people can do that based off the email address, but then target it to Facebook. And our match rates, depending on audience, the fleet executives are a little bit lower for us, but the owner-operator side of the market is pretty consistent around the 60% average. So it's just a really powerful way to be able to target something that really most of your other major ad platforms don't have.
Right. And I would point out, for those of you that are building your email and phone number list, as I'm sure most of you are, you can also go through third parties to expand that reach. So for instance, on the corporate side, we may have some overlap with some of our audiences, but I can pull those email lists, get them very targeted, and run ads that way. So we have clients that are reaching our CCJ audience on Facebook through highly targeted email and phone lists. So if your email list or phone list is small, that gives you a great way to expand your audience. So the next way, or the final way that you can target your ads on Facebook, is probably my favorite, just because I like retargeting. I think it's such a great way to nurture leads and build brand awareness in a way that's not intrusive. So a custom audience on Facebook is someone who has visited a certain website that has Facebook tracking installed. I can show them an ad on Facebook. So if someone visits randallriley.com, they start seeing our ads on Facebook. And I'm sure some of you saw that because we did that exact same thing for this webinar. Then if you want to expand that audience, you say, all right, I want to not just show this ad to people that have visited this web page or this landing page or these pages and not others. I also want to show it to other people that look like that. So you create a lookalike audience. So if you're talking about your basic Facebook advertising, you can go from the organic reach you get to a little bit of paid to show it to people that already like your page or friends of friends. Then you can expand it to people that have visited other websites, and you can even expand beyond that by getting lookalike audiences. And Nick, you said that the lookalike audience feature on Facebook is kind of unique.
Yeah, I think from my experience, the lookalike Facebook uses is the best out there. I think it's even a little bit better than what Google has. And our experience is that those expanded lookalike, act-alike audiences perform just as well as the core set that we matched. They hold up very well in terms of both click-through rate and conversion rate. So it's a really good opportunity where if you have a good matched core set that you did with the email address, phone number match, and then you do a lookalike off of that, that the lookalikes are actually really high quality and they match up pretty well in terms of how they behave with your advertising compared to your original matched group.
Okay, that's very interesting. Right. So let's jump into some examples of what this looks like. And as I just mentioned, we used some of these targeting techniques to drive registrations for this webinar. And you guys are in marketing, so you understand how this works. It gets weird, but we're going to tell you how we targeted you. Doug's the one that set up this campaign, so since he's the one that has done all the work and I get all the credit, I'll let him explain how we set this up.
Yeah, you know, just out of curiosity, could you guys raise your hands real quick if you found this webinar through the Facebook ad, real quick? Quick show of hands. Yep, okay. We've got a few. Wow, okay. A lot. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Facebook advertising really works because you guys are here. We actually ran a campaign based around conversions. So we were only paying Facebook when you guys actually registered for the webinar, and that worked really well for this specific purpose. We were targeting newsletter lists. We were targeting by phone number as well as email address, as well as our own cookie lists for randallriley.com. And then a few other targeting layers were on top of there. And it worked really well. We were able to get this information in front of people like you guys that, you know, that are looking for content just like this.
And Nick, can you share some of the examples that you've seen our clients use?
Absolutely. I'll say again, I think for a lot of people it's becoming for lead gen, and the fact that we have one client that was doing pretty much only paid search for their lead generation, and they moved over and started doing some lead gen through right-hand rail ads on Facebook that were targeted to the specific audiences that they were trying to reach that matched their customer profile, and they saw a 20% improvement in their cost per conversion, Facebook versus paid search. So I think it can be really effective as a lead generation tool. The other thing we've seen is that, as so many marketers over the last year have spent time, effort, energy, money to develop content resources and to engage in content marketing, that's a great way to use the newsfeed ads, where if you have a story to tell, or you have a specific strategic pivot, or if you have a case study, or I mentioned yesterday a company that had an independent audit that basically had come in and said, hey, your new product is sort of one of the best kept secrets in the industry. I think that's a great example of how to use it, and that way you're able to use your content with branding, with a lot of the trappings that go with the newsfeed ad, including the ability to link people back to your business page to get them to like or share, and then you have more of a sort of content marketing play around the use of the newsfeed ad. And then again, we've seen people who do a mixture of both.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it kind of leads very naturally into our kind of takeaways. Your target audience is on Facebook. It's big media, it's targeted media. You just have to find them. And then the other one is to use the type of ad that will get you the win you need. Do you need newsfeed? Do you need right-hand rail? Do you need a combination of both? And that's going to depend on the goals that you set for your brand or for that campaign. And next, target only those users most likely to engage with your brand. And this is where it can get really fun. If you have one line of equipment that a certain demographic in the trucking industry would use, and then maybe the users of a different piece of equipment is a little bit of a different demographic, you can run two separate messages there and get really targeted, not just with the ads, but with the messaging. And as Nick was saying, Facebook is a fantastic platform for content marketing. And I know for us, Doug, you can back me up on this, as we started our content marketing program, it was great. It helped with our SEO. We had people reading it. It gave us something to put in our emails. But it has been fantastic for our Facebook presence and being able to drive additional exposure and drive conversions through content.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that we're talking about even building ads and things like that, none of it matters if you don't have something quality to put out there in front of your audience. You can put all the money behind the world, but if the content is not it's not going to matter. So the first step, if anyway, is figuring out what content my audience wants, creating that content. Then you can go and
Hey, Doug, I'm having trouble hearing you. Is that just me?
No, it cut out.
Okay.
It's my mistake, guys. T-Mobile has let me down once again.
All right. I'm pretty sure we just missed the most brilliant part of this webinar, but I'm going to turn this over to Nick. And Nick, can you tell us a little bit about YouTube?
Absolutely. So as we get in, we'll do the same thing. Let's talk a little bit about scope, because again, a lot of times these are things that as marketers and communication staffs, we're pitching internally, hey, we want to put resources here. Here's our reasoning. Of course, the global scope is massive. 6 billion hours used monthly of YouTube consumption, 100 hours of video upload per minute. And again, just as we saw in the other space, if we go to our research on the next slide, in those big picture global numbers are a ton of the prospects and customers that you want to reach inside the trucking industry. So 43% usage of YouTube among fleet executives. As Julie mentioned with Facebook, that's a number that increased significantly over last year. I have every belief that will increase by just as much this year. And if you go over to the owner-operator segment, still a significant percentage, 35% of owner-operators reporting significant YouTube usage. So it is a channel where these customers are active and where these audiences are active. So it's a place worth engaging.
All right, so YouTube is big. Our audiences are on there, but why is it going to work? How would you pitch this to me that I should be doing YouTube advertising?
Sure. So let's talk about why it's effective. So one of the things, and what I think could be perhaps the biggest factor, is that the way YouTube has set up the pricing model for their advertising component for pre-roll is that you only pay when people view. And that's significant because I think a lot of people are blown away by how price effective it can be to get a significant number of views. I know we've seen, cost per views in the $2 to $4 range in this market, and that's, cheaper than you can buy click traffic, and it's on a CPM basis. It's a very low CPM. So if you ask me, hey, if I could pay the same, $3 or $4 for a click from an audience member on a mobile, gaming app, or I could get the same, for the same price, I could get one of those targeted audience members to actually watch a video telling my story, I think it's pretty compelling. The fact that you can reach a relevant audience, we'll talk about the same targeting options that we did with Facebook that are available on YouTube. And then from a device strategy, I think when you're thinking about your mobile strategy, the fact that 25% of all YouTube views globally happen on a mobile device, what we see in our markets is skewed a little bit closer to 50-50. So it's really a very impactful way to think about your mobile advertising dollars, because again, when you compare, say, pricing of display on mobile compared to YouTube pre-roll on mobile, I think it compares very favorably. And just in this one vertical, we served over 70 million video impressions just last month. So the scale is definitely there.
That's quite a lot. So before, when we were talking about Facebook, we said, yes, your audience is there. There are a lot of reasons that it's effective. But does YouTube have similar types of best practices? What are the things I need to have set up to be able to advertise on YouTube effectively?
Yeah, so I mean, you can start with just an active YouTube account and then try to make sure you've got something going there from an organic standpoint. And then if you want to tie it over to use the advertising components, all you have to do is have an active AdWords account and link those together. So I think it is really important that when you're doing advertising on YouTube that you also have a legit organic YouTube presence, and that you have videos designed to engage this audience, and that you have, just like we talked about with Facebook, the engagement from engaging people who comment and things like that that show that you're active on the channel outside of just running some ads. When it comes to your ads themselves, I think it is really important that you keep them short. I think that's where it's different, is that a lot of the stuff you create to run on your YouTube channel might be a little longer format compared to what you want to do with your ad spots is, this is pre-roll. After the first 5 seconds, most of the time people are going to have the option to skip. So you really want to take advantage of the first 5 seconds and keep the total length no more than 30 seconds to a minute. That's been, this is not something where you necessarily want to use your product video as your pre-roll ad.
Nick, how many seconds does it count? How many seconds does somebody need to view it for it to count as a view?
I should have mentioned that on the other slide. It has to pass the 30-second mark to be counted as a view, or the people who do not skip. So you really, when you think about it, I mean, that's a really, when you're considering the length of these videos, that's a pretty engaged person that's hanging around that long to watch the videos. I think the view is 30 seconds or to the completion of the video, whichever's first. And then I know we have several clients for whom the total impressions, the people who actually get presented the video to the people who view is 20%. So when you think about it, it's not, I've had marketers say, listen, I get those pre-roll ads and I always skip them. But our experience is that if it's relevant to the audience, then you can actually get pretty good view-through rates.
Right.
And of course you want to have ads.
Relevance,
yeah, go ahead.
That relevance is going to play into some of the targeting options you're going to talk about later. And if you're just doing mass throwing out YouTube in-stream ads or those pre-roll ones, that's completely different. Like, you're going to skip through those as opposed to something that's highly targeted for where you are.
That's exactly right. One of the other things you get is the opportunity to run ads alongside the videos. That's the other things you want to have sort of ready from a best practice standpoint. You'll get promoted ads that run alongside in companion position with the pre-roll video.
All right, so can you jump into some of these targeting options on YouTube? Oh, first we're going to talk about ad formats.
Yeah, just to give anybody who's not familiar with exactly what we're talking about, the pre-roll ads are the ones that show up when you're going to watch a video and you get presented an advertisement before your video begins, and then after that 5-second mark you're given the opportunity to skip. That's the stuff we're talking about. So that's, again, why it's so important to be impactful very early on in the video and to try to keep that spot shorter, not necessarily a full-blown product video. And then we're showing over on the right in the related videos the sponsored section where those videos can also be promoted to people who meet your targeting criteria to try to get them to watch it.
Okay. All right, so we've got in-stream video ad with the companion banner, and then we've got the in-display video ads. All right, so let's talk about targeting those.
Sure, so one of the main ways that we do this is with tagged audiences. So you're able to use a standard AdWords remarketing tag in order to tag people and run video just to people who have visited a certain page or a certain segment of your website. And again, this is something that we do a lot of here at Randall Reilly with our media brands based on the type of content people are consuming or the types of pages that they're viewing, based on the newsletters they're clicking through from. We're creating tagged audiences and using that to target our pre-roll video.
Okay.
Geo-targeting. So this is something that I think that Google in general does particularly well, is there are a huge number of geo-targeting options. We've had people do this from as simple as, hey, I want to target this entire region, to I want to run this message in a 100-mile radius around this city, to I want to geo-target this city where a relevant trade show is being held, to something that we do with our data from being in all the truck stop chains is that we have the ability to geo-fence truck stops and show ads to people who are in a tight radius of a truck stop. So especially for the owner-operator audience, that's something that people view these geo-targeting options to do.
Yeah.
Demographics, just like we talked about with Facebook, primarily age and gender are the ones that I've seen used, but that's just another way to get more targeted with your placement or to split your campaigns. Interest, this is another way to use, Google has some predefined interest categories, sort of categories and subcategories. It's another layer you can put on top of this. I haven't seen this used as much with products and services. In the recruiting side, I've seen people use it to try to target people who had a military or veterans interest, to try to get some overlap between people who are drivers but also have that interest. The one I've seen more in product services is the next one, which is pages subscribed to. So that way, if, let's say I'm trying to run a campaign to owner-operators, but I might want people who subscribe based on the product that I'm representing, people who subscribe to, say, Pride and Polish as a channel, or to some truck customizers or things like that, because then I'm getting people who I know have an interest in my product based on the type of stuff they're watching. So just another overlay that you can use to try to get more refined. And then lastly, one of the coolest things that I think you can do to target on YouTube is that once you get someone to view your video, Google actually will drop a separate remarketing tag on the people who viewed. And so what that allows you to do is to sort of treat this like marketing automation or lead nurturing. But instead of email at this point, I'm going to start with a target profile, and then let's say I run some pre-roll ads and I get 500 people to view this month. Well, then I'm able to take that second segment of people who viewed and begin to remarket to them, whether it's through display or another video ad. I can then sort of layer on some lead nurturing to the people who engaged with me, so that I'm now able to talk to those customers with a different message. So I think that's a really neat approach to taking people down the conversion life cycle that outside of email you just don't see done a lot.
Okay, so if I were trying to reach, for instance, fleets, I could use CCJ's tagged audience to show them my videos, and maybe it's in a specific area. And then once they watch 30 seconds of the video, I can show that group of watchers from that tagged audience. I can reach them again by layering that has viewed my video filter in search and display.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much anywhere across Google's platform. So we've seen that done with remarketing lists for search, with a second pre-roll campaign that's giving a different message. It's trying to pull people further down the funnel, or with display ads. So with a specific message that's speaking more to people who have already shown some interest.
Okay. So let's talk about some quick examples of how you see this done. And once again, I'm going to jump in with Doug, and because we ran YouTube ads for this webinar as well, so this is an easy example. What types of YouTube ads did we run, and how did we target those, Doug?
So we created some really simple animated videos that were very cheap to create and very simple, specifically to drive traffic to this webinar. We targeted them against our own cookie list, and then we also used some of the lookalike audiences.
And by our own cookie list, I think, Douglas, you were talking about visitors to randallriley.com, correct?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, visitors to randallriley.com. And we try our best to separate out those cookies between driver recruiting, people who want to market to the trucking industry, and people who want to market to the construction industry. There's a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, we end up hitting the right people with the right message. We got quite a few registrations, and we were really happy with our click-through rates for the videos that we ran. And people really seemed to like them. And obviously, when you're doing something like advertising a webinar about how to use Facebook and YouTube, you want to use Facebook and YouTube to get registrations. Well, but it was successful. We were really happy with it.
And Nick, I know that you had mentioned before, YouTube is a great place to tell your story, and you can drive conversions with it, but it's also good for branding. Can you give me some examples of where you've seen that play out, or how you see that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think video in general lends really well towards storytelling. So when it's not, when you want to do something more creative and you want to really tell a story, we have one supplier who's running campaigns with us right now that has a really creative video that's sort of a creative demonstration of the quality and the power of their product. So you can be really creative with ways that you tell that story. I think we've seen several people who wanted to more or less announce that they've come back into this market, or that they have a new product launch, or that they've re-entered a category, and they're using YouTube to do that and reaching specifically to the fleet executive segment, or reaching specifically to technology people or equipment people within fleets, or reaching specifically owner-operators. So it's a way to make sure that the people who are in your target segment know that you've made a strategic pivot, or that you've got a new product launch, or that you've done something where it's not just, hey, I want to do more than I can do in, say, print or on a banner ad. I want to actually be able to tell this story in a visual way that's more creative. I think those are probably the two we've seen done the most often. We have one OEM who's done some campaigns where they've gotten, their goal was more about driving really high-quality click traffic to a portion of their website, and so they used it again, almost, if you think of almost lead nurturing, where they were getting a 20% plus impression to view ratio, and then the people who viewed, they had a 0.5% or better click-through rate of the viewers to their website, to the links that are shown companion position with the pre-roll video. So the traffic that they were getting was highly engaged, and they were getting really high-quality click traffic. And that's really the I've only seen a couple of campaigns, done like that. So storytelling, high-quality engagement, and being really creative with your messaging in a way you can't with other channels, I think, is probably the majority of the examples that we've seen our clients use.
Okay, so I think we've got quite a few questions, but Nick, if you want to kind of tell us, all right, if I'm walking away, what are the things I need to have in my head about advertising on YouTube?
I think the first thing is that because I'm only paying for the people who are viewing, that it's amazingly affordable. It's something that for the cost of a banner click, I could actually have somebody from a target segment view my ad and watch my story. I think it's important to remember that I can be highly targeted, so that I can use custom audiences, I can use tagged audiences, I can use the different targeting options we showed to reach exactly the right customers. And I think it's important to remember that this could be a nice cornerstone of a mobile strategy because of how high the engagement is, and the not just the percentage of people on mobile who are engaging, but compared to the other, depending on what my marketing goals are, this might be one of the best ways to tell my story to a mobile audience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It is a lot bigger space on the screen than just a banner ad, too.
One thing I'll say, too, that's not on here that I think is important is that YouTube will tell you if you talk to those guys, or it's certainly been our experience as well, is that the primary barrier for most marketers trying YouTube is the lack of video assets. In terms of ones, they may have product videos, but they don't necessarily have a video that they can use for a pre-roll ad. And that's where I know a lot of vendors, we're one of them, are trying to help with that by saying, hey, if you'll commit to a 3-month campaign at this size, we'll actually include the video production for you. That way, if you don't have video assets, we can help marketers create that. And we got a really good question from the webinar yesterday about ways to create those assets if you didn't have a video production team in-house, or that wasn't something that your agency could help you accomplish. Then, we talked about there are more and more options. You mentioned even as simple as doing a slideshow exported out of PowerPoint. There's also a beta that I know Google has for a video ad builder that's very similar to that, where I'm going to take some transitions and some images and put a voiceover over that. So you can do it in a variety of ways. And we've had experience. We've tried several freelancers, so that in addition to our own video people in-house, we've used freelancers to go on location and shoot video, and had good success by trying a few out, finding the ones that work the best for us.
Yeah. For our ads, we ended up going with an animator because it worked pretty well, but we've also done slideshows. And in PowerPoint, any all those animations where things come in and move from place to place, or you can automatically animate a chart if you have some information there that you want to show. And when you export that as a video, all those animations stay. And then if you throw in a $300 professional voiceover and sound mixing, it actually comes out pretty professional.
Yeah.
So, Doug, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, they do. We have quite a few questions. We're going to go, we only have about 8 minutes here, so let's try and go rapid fire on these. Let's see. The first one is from John, and let's go ahead and make this one for Nick. What is the best method to improve your YouTube search ranking? So when people are searching for terms on YouTube, what's the best way to make sure you rank highly on YouTube?
So certainly I think a good title and description to your video is probably the most important piece to that. I think there's, on the ad side, if you're promoting videos, the click-through rate plays a big role, so trying to make sure that, you know, that's where targeting actually can matter a great deal, is that you'll improve your click-through rate on the ad side and could show up more in search. I know that's not organic, but based on having a better quality score based on click-through rate. But I would say that for the most part, on the organic side, it really comes down to that title and description. That's been my experience, more so than any other factors.
Okay. We have another question. Let's go to Nick with this one as well. How does pricing work for the companion ads that go along with your video? We had several questions about those companion ads. How do you pay for them, and how do they work?
So if, and I know you'll send out a copy of this presentation, and we didn't call it out. I didn't do a good job calling it out on the ad screen, but if you looked at the example we had in the ad format, there was actually a 300 by 250 Bank of America banner that was right beside the pre-roll ad as it was running, and so that's an example of something that you can do with an ad format there. Usually it's just a static banner that appears there over on the right while your ad's running. So that's usually value added. So when we do these campaigns, that's just something that those clicks are just bundled into the campaign. You're still only paying on a per view basis.
Yes. All right. Sounds good. This is a really interesting question. This one is for Julie from Drew. Have you ever had problems with YouTube ads showing up during negative videos that you don't want your brand associated with? I've heard some horror stories about this.
I haven't seen this happen particularly with our audience. I think it would be, you're going to run into more things like that if you're doing mass marketing, because we're in a much more targeted industry. You can control that. And Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you target your videos by interest, it will determine which types of videos it shows on.
That's right. And you can always, I think the closest to the line we ever got had to do with like some dating site videos or something like that. And you do have parameters that we use inside our campaigns to try to make sure we stay on stuff that's fairly brand safe or neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. There may be some strange situation where there's a video that is mislabeled or mistitled, but I would think that would be by far the exception, considering the level of targeting options that Google provides for video ads.
That's right.
I have one more question here, and I think I'll actually answer this. Emily asked, what was the sponsored content that led to the increase of likes? Was this different? So we ran a bunch of different content, Emily, that was targeted at the two different audiences that we wanted to reach for these webinars. And what we saw across the board was, I mean, we got a massive spike in the number of likes that we were getting, even though we weren't running any campaigns targeted towards likes. So there is a value to these Facebook, especially the newsfeed ads. There's a value to them beyond what's showing in your metrics, as in, you know, the clicks or the likes on that post, because you are going to get visibility on Facebook. You know, people see a sponsored post that, you know, Randall Riley is doing a webinar about marketing to the trucking industry. Well, who's Randall Riley? I've never heard of them before. Let me check them out. So they're going to click over to your page. They're going to see something interesting. They'll click the like button. That's basically what that boils down to. It's a little tough to quantify. I can't tell you, if you run a sponsored post, you'll get this many likes, but you will probably see a spike in the number of likes that you're getting on your page. We certainly have. Let's see. Let's do one more question here. Let's skip back to Facebook. If you're using paid advertising on Facebook, how often should you change the messaging, and how long should you let a campaign run? Let's go to Julie for this one.
Okay, so this is going to depend on your metrics, and fortunately Facebook has great metrics for your ads, so you're going to be able to see how this goes. And when we're running these ads for our clients, we keep an eye on this. So for instance, when we were running, if it's content-based, this is a blog you wrote, it's a specific video, it's a picture that you want to drive traffic to, that's going to probably expire within a week, and I would say probably sooner than that. If it is done well, then people are clicking through and you're hitting your audience. If you want to show it to an expanded audience, let it run for the week, and then I'd switch it out, because you're going to be hitting the same people over and over again. You're not going to filter out the people that clicked through, and you don't want them to get a bad taste in their mouth of, I've read this, please stop asking me to read it 10 times. And then with watching kind of a direct response ad, so what I've seen a lot and kind of what we have done that's worked well is we'll start out with content, and when we get people engaging with that, then the next phase is I'd like to drive a direct response. I'd like you to register for a webinar. I'd like you to sign up for a demo. And those ads, because they're pretty standard, we let those run for a little bit longer. So those can go a couple of weeks. You can turn them off, turn them back on later after you give it some time to get more content-based ads to that same audience.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's do one more question here. And Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I actually don't know the answer to this question, so hopefully you do. YouTube, this is from Tom. YouTube recently came out with revamped annotations they call cards. Any data on how these perform compared to annotations in the industry?
No, that is a great question. We actually just started playing with that ourselves, so I don't have any metrics, but that is something we could try to pull together and put on randallriley.com as a case study.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, well, that's the downside of being on the cutting edge there, Tom, is sometimes we don't have data for you yet because it hasn't been running long enough. But stay tuned. We'll certainly have more information coming your way soon. So I think the important thing for us all to remember is, what is the next step? So we've all sat here in this webinar. We've learned about all these different ways that we can reach our target audiences on YouTube and Facebook. And so what we've got to figure out is what the next step. So Julie, what do we do now?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about general targeting options and general trucking audiences on both Facebook and YouTube. So what you can do is, Doug's going to put in a link in the chat. You can click through there. I think it's also going to be in the email when we send out the recording of this webinar. But we work with a lot of clients, and what we'd love to do is sit down with you and talk to you about your specific audience and your specific social needs, and then help you look at a plan to utilize a lot of these targeting options in a way that's going to be really effective and help you achieve your goals.
Excellent. So I'm going to be putting, like Julie said, I'm going to put the link into the chat, and then I'm also going to be sending you an email that has the subject line, Next Steps on Facebook and YouTube. And that's just going to be going out to you guys here in the webinar. What we want to do for you is a free analysis of your audience and how they use social media. So we want to take all of our proprietary research and take a look at exactly how your audience is using social media, and hopefully figure out some ways that we can get you an amazing ROI on your marketing through these channels. So that's what we want to do for you. Click on that email when it comes through. Go to the landing page, submit the form. There's no obligation. We're not going to try and charge you any money for this. We just want to talk to you about how you can reach your audience really effectively on social media. So click on that link when it comes through, and thank you very much to everybody to attending. Thank you very much to Julie and to Nick for sharing their expertise. This was really great, you guys, and here at Randall Reilly, we're really excited about helping you guys reach the trucking industry, and this is just one way that we're excited to do that. So if you have any questions, go to the Contact Us page or email me or Julie. We would love to help you out. But thanks for attending, everybody. This has been great.
Thanks, guys. It's great.